Welcome to Sleeping Legends, where ancient stories come back to life and forgotten worlds awaken through sound and imagination. Before we dive into today's journey, tell us, where are you watching from? Which country are you in? And what time is it right now where you are? Drop your answers in the comments below. We'd love to know who's traveling through time with us tonight. And if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because we've got many more legends and lost histories coming your way. Now get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, and let your mind drift back, far back, to a time before cities ever existed, before walls, before roads, before writing, money, or kings. What was life like? How did people live? How did they survive, love, gather, hunt, dream? Tonight, we're stepping into the world of our earliest ancestors, the time of nomads, fire circles, sacred stories whispered under starlit skies, and the powerful forces of nature that shaped every part of life. Stay until the end. You might just see the world around you a little differently when it's over. And if this story resonates with you, check out our other videos too. Everyone is crafted to take you on a journey across time and mystery. Ready to begin? Let's travel back to the dawn before civilization. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something raw. No Instagram, no DoorDash, no doors. Forget what Hollywood told you. This is what life was really like before the first cities, around 10,000 BCE. Before you get too comfortable, smash that like button if you love this kind of historical deep dive, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. No, seriously, I want to know how far we've come, because 10,000 BCE, you probably wouldn't last a day. Now dim the lights, maybe grab a snack, if it's not a mammoth leg, and let's jump in. You wake up coughing, your throat's dry. You're on the floor of a damp cave, next to your cousin, who definitely smells like roasted fish and regret. No mattress, no alarm clock, just the sun stabbing you in the eyes, and the delightful stench of someone who hasn't discovered soap yet. Spoiler, that's you. It's about 6,000 years before someone even thinks of building a city. Your neighborhood, a patch of forest, a river, maybe a decent rock to sit on. And your entire tribe, maybe 20, 30 people, is counting on you not to die today. No pressure, you got 2 goals today. Find food. Don't become food. You and a few others head out, stone spears in hand, eyes peeled for movement. You've never said the word protein in your life, but your stomach growls like it has a PhD in nutrition. You see a rabbit, you throw your spear. You miss, the rabbit flips you off, spiritually, and vanishes into the underbrush. Don't worry, that was just breakfast. You've still got lunch and dinner to mess up. Back at camp, someone finds a few berries. Your buddy pulls grubs out of a rotting log. Yeah, that's lunch. Bon appetit. Question for you. Would you eat a wriggling, squishy larva if it meant surviving another day? Let me know in the comments, and be honest. As night falls, everyone gathers around the fire. It's warm, it's smoky. It smells like burning mammoth fat and sweaty feet. Cozy, right? You've got no Netflix, no TikTok, just stories. Oral traditions passed down for generations. Epic hunts, monsters in the woods. That one time, Grug tried to befriend a saber-toothed cat, Rip Grug. Someone flirts with you by handing you a dried root. You blush, that's prehistoric romance. But it's not all roasted bugs and bedtime stories. A storm's rolling in, lightning cracks. You huddle in the cave as rain lashes the forest. No roof, no drainage. Just you, mud, and the very real threat of hypothermia. Oh, and remember that neighboring tribe. They might decide tonight is a good time to raid your camp for food or revenge. Nothing says sweet dreams like existential dread and the possibility of being clubbed to death in your sleep. Let's zoom out for a second. You live in a world where everything is earned the hard way. Food, shelter, fire, safety. Nothing is guaranteed. There are no cities, no written language. The idea of owning land doesn't exist yet. You move with the seasons, the animals, the weather. You're not lazy, you can't afford to be. You walk 8 miles a day just to survive. And if you break a bone, that could be a death sentence. But something's starting to change. Someone, somewhere, figures out how to plant seeds. Grain grows, people stay longer in one place. The first tiny spark of what will become agriculture. Then villages, then cities. You are standing at the edge of history. Right now you still sleep in caves and eat worms. But your great 300 grandchildren, they'll build roads, write laws, invent cat memes, and complain about Mondays. So next time your Wi-Fi drops, or you have to walk a whole block to get your overpriced coffee, just remember, your ancestors survived saber-toothed cats, frostbite, and literal bug brunch to get you here. They didn't have walls or plumbing or oat milk. They had grit, fire, and each other. And somehow, that was enough. We always talk about our ancestors like they're just characters in a museum or extras in a documentary. But here's the thing. They were real. They laughed, they cried, they got food poisoning from mystery berries and stubbed their toes on rocks that shouldn't have been there. And through all of that, they endured. Not because they were stronger, but because they had to. You, me, were just the newest link in a 300,000-year chain of barely figuring it out. Every app you scroll, every snack you microwave, every blanket you wrap yourself in, it's built on the backs of people who had no clue what Wi-Fi was, but still somehow made it through a thunderstorm with only a mammoth hide and a bad haircut. So next time you think, ugh, life is hard, remember you're descended from people who made fire with sticks. That petty inconvenience, yeah, they literally dodged wolves for lunch. So now I'm curious. If you had to wake up in any prehistoric era just for a day, would you go full hunter-gatherer like we did today? Or cheat and drop into the Bronze Age where at least there's beer? Comment below. Which ancient time period would you risk food poisoning in? And hey, if you made it this far, I know you're one of the cool ones. Hit that like button, subscribe for more immersive deep dives, and share this video with that one friend who still can't start a fire without a lighter. Yes, Steve, we're talking about you. History isn't just about kings and empires. It's also about the unnamed millions who never built cities, but built the foundation for everything we are. You are the product of survival, adaptation, and a whole lot of mud. So stay curious, stay humble, and maybe, just maybe, learn how to start a fire, just in case. You're not asleep. No one really sleeps well out here. Because something's moving in the woods. Could be a boar, could be a bear, could be a very cranky neighbor who's mad you took his berries. The only thing between you and the unknown? A flickering fire and a really sharp stick. You grip that spear like it's a security blanket with trust issues. No city wall, no police, no panic button. Just instincts, goosebumps. And that one guy in your group who always farts when he's nervous. You know who you are. You think your roommate snoring is bad. Try sleeping next to 4 unwashed people, a crying baby, and a goat that keeps trying to eat your hair. But it's not just fear out here. There's beauty too. Someone's telling a story, probably for the 50th time, but this time you listen. It's about the moon being an old woman's eye, or how the stars were once thrown there by a boy chasing a bird. It's nonsense, maybe, but it's the only Netflix you've got. And as weird as it sounds, you start to dream. You think, what if we didn't have to move every season? What if food grew right outside the cave? What if we made homes out of mud that stayed? Narrator whispers. That's how it starts, not with a blueprint, but with a question. Here's the secret you don't learn in textbooks. Most of our ancient innovation, it wasn't invented by great men. It was invented by regular people who were tired of suffering. That pot? It meant you could store food and not starve. That net? It caught fish so you didn't have to dive into freezing rivers anymore. That sling? It gave a scrawny teen a chance against a charging boar. Innovation wasn't optional, it was survival. And it happened in bursts. Quietly, without fanfare. Nobody said, hey guys, welcome to the Neolithic Revolution. They just said, oh, that tool sucks. Let's fix it. Let's be real. Not every ancient idea was brilliant. Somebody, somewhere, definitely tried to domesticate a wolf and lost a hand. Someone mistook poison berries for snacks and hallucinated their way into folklore. The forest spirits told me to dance naked in the river. Yeah, Greg, you just ate the wrong mushroom again. Even early farming. Total disaster at first, plants died. Soil turned to dust. People got shorter, sicker, and more stressed. Shout out to early wheat. Tough on the body, even tougher on the gut. Imagine giving up the freedom of hunting. only to invent gluten intolerance. But for all the misery and mud, something magical was happening. People were connecting in new ways. Language was evolving, not just grunts anymore, actual words. Symbols, we started telling each other more than what to hunt or where to run. We started telling each other who we were, what we believed, what we remembered. You might carve your story into rock, draw a handprint on a cave wall, pass down your best jokes and your biggest fears through a story, a song, or a grunt that sounded like a duck. The sun rises again. You didn't get eaten. You didn't starve. You're sore, muddy, probably covered in bug bites, but you're alive. You stretch, you breathe, you start again. And that, not pyramids, not cities, not kings, that's the heart of human history. Waking up, facing the unknown and saying, let's try again. That persistence, that raw human grit, it didn't disappear. You still carry it. In your stress, in your ambition, in your weird, irrational fear of spiders. You may not dodge wolves on your morning walk, but you're still navigating a jungle. Still learning, still adapting, still dreaming of a better life. The difference is, now you're standing on 12,000 years of trial and error. Fire and famine, community and chaos. You didn't start the story, but you are part of it. So ask yourself, what legacy are you building on this wild, ancient foundation? Thanks for walking through time with me. From the cold floors of a cave to the comforts of your screen, you made it. Not just through this video, but through the story of survival itself. If you enjoyed this journey, don't just vanish into the algorithm. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Would you have made it in 10,000 BCE? Or would you have invented slippers and refused to go outside? Honestly, same. This has been before cities, and you've been incredible. You think it's over? Not quite. Just before dawn, the elders begin a ritual. Someone's come of age. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's that kid who just learned not to eat rocks. Progress, everyone gathers. There's paint, feathers, bones, bits of deer probably. Or something else nobody wants to identify, they chant. They move in slow, synchronized steps around the fire. You try to follow, you fail. You get corrected with a sharp elbow to the ribs. Ancient dance lessons were not optional. You've just been initiated. No one tells you what that means. Just that now you owe someone a rabbit. That's the thing. Before cities, community wasn't a luxury. It was everything. Rituals bound people together, even if they made zero sense. Even if you're now covered in fermented goat milk and tree bark, and nobody's explaining why. Every tribe has drama. Yes, even before Facebook. There's tension today. Your best friend wants to move to the river valley. But the old chief says no. Too dangerous, he growls. Which, to be fair, is how he responds to literally everything, including berries. But this isn't just a disagreement. In a group this small, one wrong decision affects everyone. You want to chime in, but you're just the guy who dropped his spear in the river last week. Not a lot of clout. You know that feeling when you send a risky text and immediately regret it? That's how it feels to speak up in a tribal council. Except now the stakes are actually life or death. No delete button, just awkward silence and judgmental stares. You're not alone in this world. Beyond the river, another tribe. You've seen them once or twice, strangers. Different hair, different words, different gods. Today they show up on the ridge, silent, watching. Your chief raises a hand. So do they, no one speaks. It's not war, not yet. But it's not peace either. You ever feel that tight knot in your gut before a fight breaks out? That's what this is. Because contact between humans back then wasn't a handshake. It was a gamble. Do you trade or do you run? Later that week, someone starts coughing, then another. You don't know the word virus. You just know people are getting pale, weak, hot to the touch, and nothing helps. You try herbs, smoke, water. The elder draws symbols in the dirt and chants for protection. You all sleep farther apart. Fire burns hotter, fear creeps in. And just like that, the tight-knit group that shared food and jokes now won't touch each other. Even without skyscrapers and airplanes, humans faced pandemics. Not just from animals, but from each other. But life isn't just disasters. Sometimes it surprises you. There's a patch of earth near the cave entrance. Something's growing there, something you planted. Grain small, ugly, but it's food. Food that didn't run away, that didn't bite back. Your mind sparks. What if we did this on purpose? What if we fed the land and it fed us back? You run to tell the others. Some laugh, some shrug. One guy says, I like chasing deer. Fair, but a few join you. And that's all it takes. It's not a farm yet, not even close. But it's the seed, literally, of everything cities would become. You end the day not in a bed, not even on a mat. Just a pile of animal skins and a rock that refuses to move. The sky, unreal. You've never seen a screen, but somehow this feels more alive than any movie. Stars spill across the sky like shattered glass. And you wonder what's out there. What came before you, what might come after. There are no walls, no roads, no maps. But still, you feel like part of something bigger. The tribe snores, the fire crackles. And for a moment, the world feels still. You existed here before cities, before money, before kings, empires, power grids, social networks, taxes, therapy, TikTok and takeout. You lived in the rawest version of the world, with no script, no Google, no backup plan, and you made it. Every scar, every meal, every risk, every idea, it shaped the future, including you, watching this, in your warm, safe room, probably wearing sweatpants. Your comfort, it's built on their chaos and their courage. All right, time traveler, it's your turn. Would you survive a week in 10,000 BCE? What would you miss the most? Food delivery, toilet paper, or actual doors? And what do you think the first city felt like when someone finally decided, let's stop running? Drop it in the comments, I read everyone. Even the ones that say first. Your group doesn't have a mayor or a constitution, but you do have a leader. He's not elected, he's not the oldest, he's just the one everyone listens to. Why? Because last year, he wrestled a wild boar, survived dysentery, and predicted a storm using nothing but a weird smell in the wind. Weirdly, he's almost always right, which makes it awkward when you're not. You tried to challenge him once, suggested moving the camp before the snow. It didn't go well. You challenged my judgment? I smell the sky. I read elk tracks like books. Okay, Greg. Chill, but still, leadership here isn't about speeches or charisma. It's about survival and who people trust when trust could mean living through winter or freezing with dignity. So quick poll, would you follow the smells the sky guy or start a revolution with your 3 semi-loyal friends and a dull rock? Drop your tribe name in the comments. Bonus points for creativity. Then someone dies. Old age, maybe. Or infection, a cut that didn't heal. There's no priest, no tombstone, just a pile of stones. And a silence you've never heard before. You feel something rise in your chest, something heavy. You want to cry, but you don't know how. Grief is still being invented. You place a carved shell on the body, a gift for the journey. To wear, no one knows. But you believe it matters, because otherwise, what was the point? This is the first flicker of spirituality. The first moment when humans looked at the sky and whispered, where did they go? No theology. Just longing, days pass. You feel weird, restless. So you walk deep into the cave, where your breath echoes like a second soul. You dip your fingers in ochre, and you start to draw a handprint, a line, a deer with impossible legs. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to exist. And when you're done, you step back. For the first time, you feel like you've left something behind. Proof that you were here. Proof that you mattered. This is art, born not from luxury, but from ache. And it will outlive you by tens of thousands of years. And now, it's time for that most ancient emotion, jealousy. You made a spear, it's sleek, balanced, deadly. Now everyone wants it. One guy even accidentally picks it up during dinner. You say nothing, but your eyes say, drop it or I throw you into the river. Jealousy wasn't invented by Instagram influencers. It was born right here, with the first shiny object someone else wanted. Congratulations, you've just discovered private property. Let's talk hygiene, or the lack of it. You walk into camp. You're instantly hit by the scent bouquet from hell. Wet hide, old meat. Human sweat, unwashed feet. And something mysterious no one will claim, but everyone suspects Ted. No soap, no clean water unless you haul it. You clean yourself with smoke, or ashes, or sand. Sometimes moss, and yet, somehow, this is normal. Still think you'd survive? Comment Moss Shower Squad if you're in. Otherwise, yeah, stick to the 21st century. You're sick, feverish, dreaming of firebirds and dancing shadows. Then he arrives, the shaman. He doesn't speak much, just chants, waves herbs, breathes smoke over your face. He's covered in symbols and smells like old pine and desperation. And somehow you feel better. Maybe it's magic, maybe it's the herbs, maybe it's the hope. But for the first time in days, you sit up, eat a berry, say, ugh. Healing was never science versus superstition. It was trial, error, and a little bit of theater. You climb the ridge alone. From here you can see it all. The fire pits, the children running, the hunter skinning a deer, the old woman grinding seeds into dust. Your people, your chaos, your creation. You think we're messy, fragile, kind of gross, but we're also trying. And we're still here, you smile. Because in 10,000 BCE, survival isn't the end. It's the beginning of everything. From handprints on a cave wall to fingerprints on glass screens. From firelight to fluorescent. From tribes of 30 to cities of millions. And through it all, the same spark, the same fear. The same need to love, to lead, to leave a mark. You've just lived a day in 10,000 BCE. Now ask yourself, what kind of mark will you leave? Let's get something straight. Roles in your tribe? They aren't fixed like some Stone Age job contract. Yeah, generally the men hunt and the women gather, but not always. You know a girl who throws a spear better than anyone, and a guy who makes the softest woven bags out of tree bark. Don't judge him, he's thriving. There's no gender reveal party. No pink berries versus blueberries. Just, can you help us survive? Great, you're in. Imagine if modern hiring worked like that. Hi, I'm excellent at not dying in the woods and can dig a killer root. You're hired. Here's a bone knife and a hug. Modern humans have radar. Satellites, Doppler, whatever. You've got clouds, wind, and Larry's bad knee. If it aches, Larry says, storm's coming. Larry is wrong half the time. But no one tells him, because Larry also made the best fish stew last week, and we all want seconds. Your job is to figure out if it's safe to move camp tomorrow. The clouds say maybe. The birds say definitely not. Your gut says, I miss modern roofs. But the thing is, you're learning. Every thunderclap, every river flood, every snow that comes too early, you're paying attention. You're inventing meteorology, one wild guess at a time. Let's get something straight. Animals do not respect your boundaries. You think you're safe while taking a leak behind a bush? Surprise, there's a snake there. You think you can sneak up on a hare? It hears you breathe and vanishes like a furry ghost. And don't get me started on boars, those tusked little tanks. They charge like they've got student loans and rage issues. You once locked eyes with one. It snorted, you snorted back. It didn't go well. You learned two things that day. Never challenge a pig. Running in sandals made of tree bark is not ideal. Language is evolving slowly, painfully and hilariously. You and your tribe can now say about 100 words, but you still mostly rely on gestures, grunts, and extremely expressive eyebrow raises. Trying to explain the big hairy animal that stepped on Karg's leg takes 5 minutes and 3 accidental insults. But little by little, you start inventing symbols. Maybe you draw lines for many. Maybe you slap your chest and point at someone's feet to mean, move now, dummy. Eventually, there's a shared sound for danger, a sound for food, a sound for, not berries again. And someday these sounds become languages. But right now it's just controlled chaos with extra saliva. Narrator teasing. Honestly, it's not that different from a first date. The season is shifting. The air smells like frozen moss and unfinished goodbyes. It's time to move. You pack up camp. Your tools, your scraps of fur, your memories. Nothing is left behind but footprints, ashes, and a single carved bone tucked into a tree hollow. You've done this before many times. Every time the journey's a gamble. Will there be water where you're going? Will another tribe be there already? Will the land be generous or empty? The elders lead. The children complain. The dogs bark at every shadow. You walk and walk. Because this is your life. Chasing seasons, escaping hunger. Moving forward because standing still means extinction. You crest a hill. See a lake, blue as the sky and just as wide. No one's ever been here. It's unnamed until you name it. Just a sound, a word you made up on the spot. The others repeat it, laugh at it, then say it again. It sticks. You've just named a place. You invented meaning. You labeled the landscape. And that name might live long after your bones are dust. You didn't build a monument. You said a word, and now it echoes. 12,000 years later, you're here, watching this on a screen, in a room in a city. Maybe you just microwaved something. Maybe you're scrolling comments, ignoring your third notification. But in your DNA, that wanderer still walks. The one who stared at stars without names, who feared fire and then made it, who grunted until words happened, who kept moving, kept naming, kept making stories. That was you, and still is. You don't just descend from survivors. You descend from explorers, creators, and stone-cold weirdos who licked unknown berries just to find out. We lost a lot of good people that way. So, what now? You've seen a day in the life before cities, before roads, before written history. And here you are, wired, warm, watching a video about it. Which means their story didn't end, it became yours. The question is, what story are you writing now? Let's talk medicine, because spoiler alert, 10,000 BCE is not exactly a sterile environment. You step on a thorn, it festers. You try pulling it out with a dirty stick, while a guy named Uruk holds your hand and screams louder than you do. Someone chews bark and smears it on your wound. Is it antiseptic or is it tree-flavored nonsense? You don't know. But you don't have better options, so you go with it. And yet, somehow, people figured things out. Willow bark helps pain. Certain molds kill infections. Moss works as a bandage. But also as a snack if you're desperate. Let's not talk about that. No stethoscopes, no scans. Just vibes and desperation. And yet, some of them survived worse than a stubbed toe. When you got sick, it wasn't just your problem. The whole tribe rallied. Somebody gave you food. Someone else guarded the fire. Even the annoying kid who always throws rocks sat quietly for once. Because in 10,000 BCE, every person matters. If one of you goes down, the whole survival equation changes. No sick leave, no remote work. No binge-watching medical dramas in bed. Just the brutal reality. If you don't get better, you don't come back. And yet, surrounded by mud, firelight, and ancient herbs, sometimes you do get better. Sometimes they carry you through. Because compassion, that's ancient too. Eventually you realize nature is unpredictable. Lightning strikes, rivers flood. A perfect hunting ground suddenly goes quiet. You start to wonder, is someone or something out there watching? So you leave a few berries by the tree. Whisper to the sky. Scratch a symbol into the cave wall. Boom, you just invented spirituality. Maybe it's a god. Maybe it's an ancestor. Maybe it's just your attempt to control chaos with rituals and carved rocks. You don't have doctrine, you have superstition, the original terms and conditions. If your cousin tripped after mocking the owl statue, that's divine retribution, obviously. And just like that, you're a theologian with a dirt tunic and a rock necklace. One night someone smacks two stones together. Another joins in with sticks, someone hums. Another whistles through a hollowed bone. Next thing you know, you've got music. Is it in tune? Not really. Is it catchy? Definitely it's rhythm. It's energy. It's humans doing what we've always done, making noise together. You dance around the fire like you've just discovered TikTok, but it smells like burnt roots and everyone has lice. No judgment here, because even without lyrics, auto-tune, or a recording studio, this moment matters. You're creating something for joy. Not food, not survival, just joy. And that's revolutionary. Ah, yes, love. Or let's call it prehistoric situationships. You notice someone, they notice you. You bring them the fattest, juiciest lizard you can find. They blush or grunt approvingly. It's hard to tell. You sit next to them by the fire, not too close. There are rules, even now. You make them a necklace from bird bones. It smells, but it's from the heart. And suddenly you're a couple. You share your mammoth skin. You raise goats together. You maybe carve your initials into a tree. Just kidding, no letters yet. You draw two stick figures holding hands. It's awkward, it's adorable. It's older than poetry. Love, after all, is the original survival strategy. Some nights sleep doesn't come easy. You dream of falling, of fire, of beasts. There are no psychologists, no dream dictionaries, just your tribe, your fire, and your imagination running wild. You tell your dream to an elder. She nods and says, "That means you need to walk east tomorrow." What does it mean? No one knows. But it feels real, and in a world without science, feelings are law. Sometimes your dreams change decisions. A hunt is delayed, a path avoided, a child given a new name. Narrator serious, because even when you don't understand your own mind, you listen, and that's part of how you survive. And every so often, there's peace. No predators, no hunger, no fire to tend, just wind, sky, and the strange, overwhelming feeling that you're part of something enormous and ancient and beautiful. You don't have words for it, but if you did, it might be wonder or awe, or a really weird kind of happiness that smells like smoke and sweat. You breathe, you exhale, you go back to camp. Tomorrow will be hard, but this was worth it, and so your day ends. The fire crackles low, your tools are nearby. Your tribe sleeps close. You've hunted, healed, danced not named. You didn't write history, but you lived it. You didn't just survive. You adapted, you felt. You created, and in the morning, you'll do it all over again. Because that's what we do. From caves to cities, bones to bandwidth, we keep going. You wake up before the sun, because the birds are screaming, no alarm clock. Just a flock of prehistoric geese holding a banshee concert outside your sleeping area. You rub your eyes, you're sore. Because, again, beds have not been invented. Just animal hides and whatever part of the earth feels the least like a rock. You check your tools, check your fire. Check your stomach, which is growling louder than the birds now. Welcome to another glorious day of keeping yourself alive with nothing but instinct, teamwork, and really strong thighs. Let's talk parenting. You think your toddler is tough because they throw tantrums at Target? Try raising kids when the environment literally wants to eat them. No diapers, no strollers, no baby monitors, just slings, soot, and whatever sharp eye your cousin has. Children don't get toys. They get rocks, sticks, occasionally a very confused frog. But they play, they mimic, they learn, and by the time they can walk, they can help. Sort of, unless they wander off chasing a bird again. Still, there's joy. You watch them discover the world. You teach them to shape it. And somewhere in the chaos, there's love. Even 10,000 years ago, some things never change. Problem solving, 10,000 BCE edition. Your fish trap isn't working? Try rearranging the sticks. Or inventing string, or just yelling at the river. No YouTube tutorials, no Home Depot. Just trial, error, and occasionally innovation. You don't invent tools because you're trying to get famous. You invent them because you're tired of starving. Need to carry water? You hollow a gourd. Need to cut bark? You sharpen a bone. Need to climb something? You say no thanks and walk around it. Necessity isn't just the mother of invention. It's the hungry, barefoot, underslept, mosquito-bitten mother of invention. Seasons change. So do you. You've been here for weeks, maybe months. The food is thinning. The wind is shifting. The animals are moving. So what do? You pack up your entire life and follow. Your house temporary. Your neighborhood mobile. Your comfort zone doesn't exist. The journey is slow. You carry everything, tools, hides, food, children, your one good fire rock. And still, you sing, you tell stories. You look at the stars and remember this is what your people have always done. No maps, no roads. Just instinct, observation, and a really solid sense of direction. Or you get lost for a week and pretend it was on purpose. Now let's talk about language. Yes, they had it. No, it didn't sound like Shakespeare. More like Ugna, come here, hacho. Don't step in that. Snarr. Seriously, why are you like this? It's a mix of grunts, tone, body language, and it works. You can warn of danger, tease a friend. Tell your crush that their bone tool is looking sharp today. You don't have writing, but you have storytelling. Oral traditions, songs, memory games. Your history lives in voices, not books. And that's kind of beautiful, right? Fashion. Oh yes, there's fashion. Let's be clear, this is not just whatever fur was lying around. People decorated, painted their skin, wore beads made from teeth, bones, shells, and the occasional shiny rock. Some outfits said, "I'm the best hunter." Others screamed, "I found feathers and now I'm fabulous." Style had purpose, status, identity, maybe even attraction. And sure, you smelled like smoke and onions most days, but you looked incredible doing it. Because even 12,000 years ago, humans needed to express themselves. And sometimes that expression was leopard print loincloths and mud-based eyeliner. Before books, before phones, there were stories. Everything you know, passed down. Word by word, night by night. You remember the river that floods, the hill where berries grow, the shape of the stars in autumn. You carry knowledge the way your ancestors carried fire, with care, with reverence, with the hope it'll reach the next hand. There are no history books here, but there is history, in memory, in song and scar. You are living in a story older than time, and you are not the end of it. We talk about primitive people like they were behind us, but in so many ways, they were the beginning of us. They didn't build skyscrapers, but they built fire, family, belief, music, memory, language, and love. You don't have to imagine what they were like. You are what they were like. Their struggles echo in our anxieties. Their solutions live in our habits. Their strength, it's in your bones. So next time you feel disconnected from the past, step outside. Touch the earth, listen to wind. You're not far from them at all. You believe in something, maybe it's the sun. Maybe it's the bear that stalks the hills. Maybe it's your dead uncle whispering advice through a breeze. Either way, your world is alive and it talks back. Every animal, tree, or weirdly shaped rock might be sacred. You don't separate the spiritual from the everyday, because here in the wild, they're the same thing. Birth, death, fire, blood, the hunt, the storm, it all means something. So you make charms, you paint signs. You sit with your elders and ask, what does the owl mean when it cries 3 times at dusk? And someone always has an answer, even if it's just, stop bothering the owl. Let's talk gender roles without the TikTok hot takes. In 10,000 BCE, who does what? Well, it depends. Yes, some groups had clear roles. Men hunt, women gather. But others, not so rigid. Some women were hunters. Some men were cooks. Some people didn't quite fit either label, and guess what? Nobody had time to argue about it. Because if you can skin a rabbit, dodge a snake, and carry your weight, you're in. This wasn't about ideology. It was about function, survival, and trust. Modern people like categories. Prehistoric people liked results. Humans fight. You wish they didn't, but sometimes someone steals food. Sometimes someone gets too loud, too proud, or too violent. And there's no jail, no judge, no HR department, so the community handles it. Sometimes that means exile. Sometimes shame, sometimes blood. This isn't Lord of the Flies. It's more like a family feud with real consequences. Because out here, drama doesn't mean subtweets. It means survival just got harder for everyone. Still, most days you make it work. You forgive because you have to. There's nowhere else to go. And then someone dies, maybe from a fall, maybe from illness, maybe from the kind of slow hunger that no one talks about. You mourn them. You don't have coffins, hymns, or gravestones. But you have stones. You have song, you have memory. You lay their body carefully. Sometimes you bury them with beads, a tool, a tooth, a symbol of what they loved or what they feared. And then you speak their name. Because even now, even here, to be forgotten is the second death. So you carry them forward. Not in photos, but in story. And maybe in your own children's eyes. And after all that, you still sing. There's rhythm in your blood. You clap, you stomp. You whistle into carved bone and call it a flute. Music isn't a luxury, it's medicine. It's how you grieve, how you celebrate, how you remember. You don't record albums, but you pass a melody down so clearly it echoes for generations. Your voice is hoarse, your feet are sore, and still you dance because that's what humans do. We make sound from silence. We make meaning from noise. One day you stop moving. Not forever, but for a while. You build something bigger, a circle of huts, a shared hearth, a fence to keep the pigs in. And just like that, the idea of settlement is born. It's messy, it's weird. It smells like mud, smoke, and ambition. But you stay, and so do others. And slowly, year by year, season by season, a village begins to grow. You're not in a city yet, but you're getting there. 12,000 years later, people live in towers, fly through the sky. send emojis to strangers on the other side of the world. But none of that would exist without you, without your fire, your hands, your hunger, your spirit. You didn't build cities, you made cities possible. Every stone we stack today, it sits on the bones of your work. You were the blueprint. So next time your phone dies, your Wi-Fi cuts out, or your fridge stops working, remember this: you come from people who could start fire with sticks, who made music from bone, who mapped the stars without names. You are not weak, you are not soft, you are a spark from a fire older than language. So ask yourself, what are you building? What stories will you leave behind? What will your descendants thank you for? Leave a comment. Tell me, would you have survived back then? Would you have thrived? Or sis, would you have invented pillows immediately? Here's the thing about staying in one place. It starts small. Mud huts, shared meals, everyone helps with the goats. But then things change because now someone says, this part, this is my land. And someone else goes, wait, I thought it was ours. And just like that, the first property dispute is born. No lawyers, just looks that could kill. This never used to happen on the move. When the food dried up, you just left. But now that you've built something, now that you've planted crops, you start drawing invisible lines. And people, we love lines. We also love crossing them. Here's a thought that never existed before farming. I have more than I need. Surplus. Sounds nice, right? Finally, some breathing room. But surplus comes with side effects. If you have more food, you need to store it. So you build a granary. Then you need someone to watch the granary. Then someone says, hey, I'll protect the food if you pay me. And someone else says, I'll organize all of you, also for a fee. And suddenly wealth isn't about speed, skill, or strength. It's about storage. Grain becomes power. Power becomes hierarchy. And that dude who used to hunt barefoot, now he sits around giving orders and telling stories about how things used to be. Inequality, it's not natural, it's engineered. Before settlements, you could leave. If someone got too bossy, you packed up your furs and followed the mammoth trail. But now you're stuck. Tied to land, to season, to debt. You owe someone grain, or labor, or your daughter's marriage. The ground doesn't just grow crops, it starts growing rules. And those rules start favoring people with, well, more grain. Settling down sounds romantic until you live it. You're not walking 12 miles a day anymore. But now your back aches from digging, planting, carrying water. Your diet, less meat, more starch. Your teeth, worn down by grit in your bread. And remember those gods you whispered to. Now there are new gods, bigger, hungrier. They don't just ask for your prayers. They ask for offerings. You stay in one place, but the demands just keep moving. But something else is happening too. You're building. Not just tools anymore, structures, walls to protect. Altars to worship, storerooms to hide stuff in when your cousin gets nosy. There's rhythm to the chaos, order forming from instinct. 100 decisions being made daily. Where do we put the well? Who decides what's fair? What happens if someone steals? And every time you solve one of those, you get a little closer to a city. Not a skyline, not traffic and Starbucks, but the bones of civilization. Once you settle down, people find you, neighbors. Traders, rivals. One day a group shows up with shiny beads and dried fish. You have salt, you trade. It's awkward. No one speaks the same language, so you grunt, gesture, nod. Then someone laughs, and it works. Trade is born. Globalization 1.0. Dirt roads, sandals, and suspicious side eyes. But along with beads and ideas, disease travels too. And bad deals, and news of better lands elsewhere. Settling connects you. And connection is never safe. Eventually the wild feels far away. You've planted so many seasons you forget the last time you tracked a deer. You build with plans now. You think of seasons as tax cycles. You start calling things mine more than ours. And even though it's all new, stone walls, grain taxes, leaders with jewelry, something in you misses the old world. The campfire stories, the wind through endless trees. The nights when the stars were the only roof you needed. You're living in the future, but something primitive inside you still remembers. Here's the twist. A city isn't just a place. It's a memory. Every stone laid, every street drawn, every market opened, echoes back to the firelit circle of a family who just wanted to make it through the winter. Cities are just stories, stacked. You walk those stories every day. Skyscrapers, sidewalks, cafes, all of it, descended from the grit, the risk, and the messy genius of people who decided to stay. You're not apart from them. You are because of them. So here's my question. If you could, would you go back? No Wi-Fi, no lattes, just stars, hunger, fire, and freedom. Would you survive? Would you thrive? Would you be the leader, the healer, the one who carved songs into stone? Or would you miss your pillow too much? Drop a comment. Tell me what role you think you'd play in 10,000 BCE. And hey, if you made it this far, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who thinks grinding started with Minecraft. This has been Before Cities. You've been amazing. And somewhere your ancestors are nodding proudly, probably while chewing on dried squirrel. Stay curious, stay human. And remember, we were wild before we were wise. Right, don't think you're off the hook yet. We still haven't talked about the next plot twist. Because once people settle, they realize something. How do you remember stuff? What if old Ziva owes you 3 goats, and next year he swears it was only 1? Welcome to the dawn of writing. You start scratching marks on bark, clay, stone. Little shapes, little stories. A tally of debts. A recipe, a prayer. Language carved into permanence. And it's clumsy at first. You're basically drawing goat stick grain, but soon it grows. Syllables. Words, sentences that outlive you. Think about it. Before this, your voice died with you. Now, a scrap of clay can talk for you centuries later. That's basically immortality, even if you're just complaining about grain taxes. But hey, not everyone trusted these new symbols. A lot of knowledge stayed in stories, spoken stories. Stories that explained why the rain sometimes failed, why your sister got sick, why the stars spun around. Some people became the first professional talkers, storytellers, shamans, keepers of the word. They had power because they could weave memory, myth, and rules together in ways writing couldn't. And you, listening in the dark, would believe every word. Because your world was still full of mysteries. The first priests of knowledge, long before textbooks, long before Google. Next came buildings, for the invisible. You didn't just build walls for grain. You built them for the gods. For the spirits, for the ancestors. Call it a shrine, call it a temple. Call it the first keep-out sign between normal humans and something more powerful. These places smelled of incense or animal blood, or maybe even the sharp tang of fresh clay. Chants echoed in the night, candles flickered. And the people who ran these temples, they had knowledge too. Astronomy, harvest timing, rituals. And yeah, maybe they used that knowledge to squeeze a few extra gifts from your sheep herd. But hey, you wanted someone to keep the sun coming back, right? Okay, confession time. The first farmers and villagers, they had disagreements. Shocking, I know. Who gets the good water? Who steps in when your neighbor steals your goat? Who pays if your cow stomps someone's barley field? They needed rules, they needed law. But laws don't grow on trees. They grow out of arguments, and the loudest, strongest, or cleverest usually decided them. One day you're telling a neighbor to back off your well. The next, you're inventing the first courtroom, with everyone gathered around debating justice. And if you think modern law is a mess, imagine doing it with no writing, no police, no official stamps. Just anger and memory, messy but necessary. And here's a thing nobody prepared for: permanence. When you live on the move, you leave things behind. No cleanup. But once you settle, things break. Things rot. Things fall apart. Your roof caves in. Your walls crack. You have to fix, repair, maintain. Turns out stability means you were stuck with chores. Forever. Welcome to the first mortgage. You build a house and it owns you as much as you own it. Sound familiar? I know what you're thinking. Weren't these people free and wild? Sure, kind of. But daily life was brutal. Every dot single. Potato grind grain. Haul water, mend sandals. Fix the fence, gather firewood. Then do it all again tomorrow. Yes, no traffic jams, but no PTO either. You could trade the endless hunt for endless chores. Fair maybe. But no one was calling it the good old days. Still, there was one magic spark. Community. When people stayed together, they didn't just share tools or land. They shared meaning, births, deaths, harvest feasts, weddings, games, music on bone flutes, drums from animal hide, dancing until your legs ached. That right there is the soul of humanity, finding each other even when life is hard and choosing to celebrate anyway. You might have more calluses than dreams, but you had people. From those communities came legends. Why does the river flood? Why do we bury our dead under that tree? Who made the world? They invented heroes, tricksters, shadowy gods. These weren't just silly bedtime stories. They were glue that held a culture together. That gave kids a reason to hope. That made rules into more than threats, into sacred truths. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, one settlement turned into 2, then 5, then 50. Riverside clusters, hilltop strongholds. Paths between them, trade routes, conflicts. All those seeds of what would one day be civilization. If the hunter-gatherer life was humanity's childhood, then these clay bricks and goat herders and storytellers was the start of humanity's adolescence. So let's talk about power. Because once you've got food, fences, and 50 neighbors, somebody's got to organize it all, right? Someone needs to say, you 2 harvest the barley. You 3 dig the irrigation ditch. And me, I'll supervise. Yeah, power creeps in. Quiet at first. Maybe it starts as wisdom, the elder who survived 10 winters. The healer who knows which leaves stop bleeding. But over time, knowledge turns into control. Control turns into rules. Rules turn into someone standing taller, eating more, deciding who gets what. And boom, the first chieftains, warlords, proto-kings. Congratulations, we've just invented inequality. Here's the secret no one tells you. The first currency wasn't gold. It was status, the right necklace. The biggest feast, the most dramatic scar. In small groups, reputation is everything. Did you kill a boar last week? Did you sing well at the last fire gathering? Did you bring mushrooms and not kill anyone with them this time? Now, as villages grow, that same logic twists into social ranking. Who's related to who? Who owns the grain? Who speaks for the spirits? And suddenly, your worth isn't just about what you do, but who you are. Or worse, who you were born as. Before settlements, the division of labor was real, sure, but flexible. You hunt when you can. You gather what's nearby. Everyone's got to contribute or starve. But once you settle, things specialize. And slowly, subtly, hierarchies harden. Men start handling the plow, not because they're stronger, but because it's now tied to land ownership, to politics, to war. Women get locked into childcare and domestic tasks, not because they can't lead, but because someone's got to stay close to the hearth. And that someone becomes tradition. Sound familiar? Yeah. We're still untangling that legacy today. Comment below if you've ever heard someone say, that's just how it's always been. Because, spoiler alert, it hasn't. It was made up. It can change. Let's get a little uncomfortable. You want cities? You want progress? It costs something. The first farmers, they cleared forests. They diverted rivers. They hunted entire species off the map. Not with malice, just need. And unlike nomads, who move on after the land tires, settlers stay. They plant deeper, push harder, burn more. Ecosystems that had thrived for millennia suddenly stretched to breaking. The modern climate crisis didn't start with factories. It started when we planted the first wheat field and said, this is ours now. You knew this was coming. Land pass resources plus ego reduce conflict. You grow crops, I grow crops, but your field's too close to my water source. Or your goats keep accidentally eating my beans. And then one day, someone doesn't just steal food. They steal people, they burn huts, they take tools. And suddenly, war isn't a metaphor. It's real. Blood, fire, loss, your cousin's gone. Your child hides under the sleeping mats when someone shouts at night. This is the beginning of organized violence. Not just a fight, a plan, a raid, a campaign, a terrifying new normal. And yet somehow people don't stop. They spread. Out across the Fertile Crescent, down rivers, through deserts. Up mountains they bring seeds, tools, stories, gods. And just like gossip, farming spreads. Settlement spreads, language evolves. and tiny cultures become civilizations. Your little mud brick town. It may be gone in 500 years, but your idea, your food, your symbols, your DNA keeps going. Somewhere off in the future, a ruler will carve laws into stone. A general will march under a new flag. A builder will raise walls 30 feet high. But those empires, they'll be built on your bones. The knowledge you carved into wood. The calendar you scratched into pottery. The customs you argued over by firelight. They remember you, even if history doesn't. So here's the truth, whispered between the lines of everything we've seen. Before cities, before kings, before even the wheel, there was you, waking up to cold wind and wood smoke, learning to plant and stay and belong, staring at the stars and wondering who you are. You weren't primitive, you weren't simple. You were becoming, and you still are. So tell me, if you lived back then, in the mud, the firelight, the edge of something new, what would you leave behind? Not just bones, ideas, comment below. I read every one, and if this journey sparked something in you, that little voice that whispers we've been here before, hit like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to remember. Long before blueprints and budgets, buildings were raised with belief. And belief, that's a hell of a building material. You wanted the rains to come. You carved prayers into rock. You wanted protection from chaos. You built walls, not just to hold back invaders, but to hold up the sky. The first monumental architecture wasn't about comfort. It wasn't even about shelter. It was about meaning. Temples weren't homes for people. They were homes for gods. And if you ever doubted the gods existed, you only had to look up at the sandstone spire that touched the clouds and think, surely something more powerful than us made that happen. Spoiler, it was us. It's always been us. Let's talk about something almost no one worships, but everyone obeys. Paperwork. Well, the claywork first, but same vibe. You see, once your settlement grows big enough that you don't know everyone's name, you can't just yell, hey, that's my goat, and expect justice. You need records, laws, receipts. And so, writing, real complex writing, finally emerges. Not for poetry, not for love letters, for taxes. Yeah, scribes were the original bureaucrats. They didn't sing to the heavens, they tracked grain. They calculated livestock rations. They invented spreadsheets in wedge form. They didn't wear crowns, but they outlived kings. Once people started recording who owed what to whom, debt became permanent. Not just, I'll help you build your house if you help me dig a well. Now it was, you owe me 6 bags of barley with interest. And if you couldn't pay, first you lost your harvest, then your land, then maybe your kids, sold into labor to pay off what you couldn't. Suddenly, inequality wasn't just cultural, it was mathematical. It was baked into tablets. So while we're busy glorifying the birth of writing, maybe pause and whisper, thanks for inventing bureaucracy and lifelong servitude, ancient Sumer. Not a king. You're a specialist. You make sandals. You dye cloth. You bake 37 loaves a day for someone wealthier than you'll ever be. You live in a narrow home, pay your temple taxes and quietly wonder, is this really it? And yes, you're slightly better off than the guy digging the irrigation ditch. But not by much. You dream of moving up, of your kids becoming scribes, maybe even priests. But that means more work, more debt, more hoping the gods, or your landlord, don't notice you. The middle class, oldest hustle in the book. City life wasn't clean. It was loud, cramped, full of smells you couldn't name and probably shouldn't. You'd eat food you didn't grow. You'd brush shoulders with strangers every hour. For the first time in human history, people lived among thousands of others, most of whom they didn't know, didn't trust, and didn't like. And yet, it worked, barely. Because trade was faster, ideas traveled farther, and maybe, just maybe, your kid could learn to read instead of dig. Cities were the first experiment in scaling up humanity. The results still under review. The first great tragedy of civilization, there was enough. And still, not everyone got some. Surplus should have meant rest, security, leisure. But instead it created hierarchy, gatekeepers, people who decided who deserved the wheat and who didn't. So while the elites gorged on dates and beer and roasted sheep, the people who grew the food stood outside, hungry. This isn't a flaw in the system. It was the system. The stars were the same. The winds still blew, but something had changed. You weren't just surviving anymore. You were stuck, tied to a plot of land, a ledger, a rule. And at night, when the city finally quieted, you'd look up and wonder, is this all there is? You missed the forest, the firelight, the simple silence of walking without direction. You built a world to stay in place, but a part of you still longed to move, still does. We like to think of time as a straight line, a march forward, better every year. But the truth, progress doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it's losing freedom for structure, wonder for convenience. Silence for data. We've built wonders. We've erased forests. We've sent messages to the stars and forgotten how to sit still. But if history teaches anything, it's this. We always think we're the final version. We never are. So you've got land, water, and food. Guess what your neighbor wants? All of it. You wake up to the sound of horns. Dust stings your eyes, the walls tremble. Not from an earthquake, but from men with axes, charging like they've got something to prove. Because they do. This is the first war. Not a bar fight, not a stolen cow. An organized slaughter to prove who deserves to rule the river and who deserves to rot in it. You've never seen death in bulk before. Now it's everywhere. Screams. Smoke, steel like copper glinting red. The city survives, barely. But nothing feels safe anymore. And congratulations, your people just invented the military-industrial complex. Lucky you. Remember when religion was just you, the stars, and a bone flute? Yeah, forget that. Now worship is a full-time operation. Temples have become banks, priests are tax collectors. Your offering? That's just rent in spiritual form. The gods used to live in the wind. Now they live behind thick walls, flanked by guards, and they only take meetings through official intermediaries. And you still go, because what if they're real? What if the storm last week was punishment? So you light the incense, whisper your prayers, and try not to look too skeptical. Skeptics, after all, don't live long. Okay, pause. Let's drop you into this scene. You're in a linen tunic. It itches. The sun is melting your eyebrows. Your sandals are exactly as comfortable as they sound. But it's festival day, and everyone's drunk by noon. There's drumming, there's dancing. There's some kind of roasted animal on a spit, and your nose is caught somewhere between delight and, is that charred bone marrow? You wander through the crowd. A stranger touches your hand. Was it flirtation, a thief? Both. You lose a coin, you gain a story. Your cousin throws up behind the granary. It's the most alive you've felt in weeks. For a moment, you forget the taxes, the walls, the debt. For a moment, you're free. Let's not sugarcoat it. Ancient society had a script for you. If you're a man, work, fight, obey. If you're a woman, bear children, grind wheat, hope not to die in childbirth. If you're anything outside that binary, well, then history didn't leave you much room to breathe. But here's the thing, behind the scenes, women ran economies. They brewed the beer, wove the cloth, raised the next generation. And in some places, Anatolia, Egypt, Sumer, they even ruled. Briefly, fiercely. So no, ancient people weren't stupid about gender. They were just stuck, like us, with old stories and new problems. Sound familiar? You live to 40? You're ancient, your knees ache. Your teeth are mostly gone. But you've survived floods, famines, and at least 2 political coups. And now, people ask you for stories. They want to know what the stars meant back then. How to cure a fever with bark. What it felt like the first time the irrigation failed. You have no books, no photos. Only memory. You speak, and that's history. Your breath is the library. Your scars are the archives. And when you die, a whole world dies with you. Sometimes you sneak outside the city. You walk for hours alone. The walls vanish behind you. The noise fades. And for the first time in weeks, you hear nothing but wind and birdsong. No orders, no ledgers. Just you, the trees, and the slow, quiet pulse of the earth. You remember the stories about how your people used to live like this every day. No stone, no gold. No written word, just time. And for a flicker, a heartbeat, you wonder if all this civilization was a mistake. You'll never say that out loud, but you'll think it sometimes, especially when the city grows louder again. The people of 10,000 BCE, they weren't primitive. They were you, just with worse shoes. They loved, they joked, they mourned. They believed things that sound wild to us and ignored truths we now take for granted. They built empires out of clay. They invented stories that still shape religions today. They made choices and mistakes that echo into the bones of every modern city. They were the first version of us, and we are just the next. If you lived back then, really lived it, barefoot, sunburned, calloused and uncertain, would you have followed the rules or made your own? Would you stay in the city or disappear into the forest? Let me know in the comments. Would love to hear your what if. And if this journey got you thinking, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who complains when the Wi-Fi's slow. Sometimes the city gets into your head. Not the noise, not the people. The weight, the sense that you're a gear in a giant grinding wheel. That if you vanished tomorrow, the granary would still open, the priest would still chant, and the sun would rise unbothered. You wouldn't call it depression. There's no word for that yet, but it feels like drowning in dry air. And no one sees it, because you keep working, you keep smiling. Because if you stop, someone else takes your spot. Mental health? Not even a rumor yet. Just the vague hope that maybe the gods will take the darkness from you if you burn the right goat. Spoiler, they don't. Your cousin gets sick, not a sniffle, the bad kind. The kind with shaking and blood and moaning that doesn't stop. And the village elders, they don't call a healer. They point fingers, bad omen, witchcraft. Someone angered the spirits. Next thing you know, a woman who once gave birth during an eclipse is tied to a post. Logic takes a back seat when panic grabs the wheel. And that's the price of fear. When science hasn't been invented yet, a lot of innocent people get blamed for thunder. The city never sleeps, which means you don't either. You've got jobs now, actual roles, and a debt to pay to someone you've never met. You work the kilns, you mold bricks. You skin animals and dry hides and dig channels that crack your spine in two. And for what? 3 rations of beer, stale barley bread, and the privilege of not being whipped. Ancient job security. Keep breathing and don't complain. Oh, and if you're born into the wrong caste, tough. There's no LinkedIn for escaping that. And while you're breaking your back-stacking fish baskets, there's a guy in a robe indoors inventing math. He's using a stylus made from bone, scribbling things like P and calculating when the moon will vanish. People call him strange. He calls himself observant. Welcome to the first scientist. He can't explain gravity, but he can tell you when the river will flood next, which, honestly, is more useful right now. He doesn't wear armor, but in 2,000 years, his kind will shape the world more than any warrior ever could. Never underestimate the kid with the weird hobbies. Want to look good? Get ready to suffer. You mash beetles into paste for red pigment. You grind malachite for green eyeliner, which, fun fact, may or may not cause permanent eye damage. But hey, you look fabulous. There's no Instagram yet, but there's gossip. And status, it lives on your skin. Your jewelry, your scent. Frankincense if you're rich. Goat fat if you're not. Beauty isn't just decoration. It's armor, it's power. And sometimes it's survival. Because in the first cities, your appearance can mean the difference between welcome and outsider, between marriage and servitude. And then there's him, the king, the ruler, the high one. He used to be a warrior or a priest, or some guy with a big jaw and good branding. Now he sits on a platform, talks in proverbs, takes credit when the crops are good, and blames you when they're not. He claims to speak to the gods. He probably believes it. Or maybe he just figured out that divinity is the best insurance policy in town. Still, he's not stupid. He knows one bad famine, and he's a footnote. So he builds temples, he feeds the poor just enough, and he keeps a very large guard outside his bedroom. Because even in the first cities, power is a house of reeds. One spark and it's gone. There's a child watching you. Not just literally, though yes, your neighbor's kid has been mimicking your gestures for weeks. I mean someone who sees how you live, how you kneel during prayer, how you barter in the market, how you hold silence when the guards walk by. They're watching. They'll take what you do and make it a habit. They'll forget your name, but not your shape, and in 100 years, their descendants will call this city ancient and call you the ones who came before. Thousands of years later, someone digs where you lived. They find your broken bowl, your child's tooth. A wall with strange symbols scratched just beneath the official carvings. And they wonder, who were these people? What did they believe? What did they fear? They'll write papers, build models, get a few things wildly wrong. But one thing will be clear, you mattered. Even if your name never made it onto a tablet. Even if your body turned to dust in an unmarked grave. You were the beginning, the breath before the song, the fire before the forge. You live in cities now, massive, blinking, buzzing cities. But beneath your streets, ruins, foundations laid by barefoot bricklayers 7,000 years ago. Every crosswalk, every faucet, every written word, every full moon, you walk barefoot to the shrine. Not because you want to, because you must. The priest says, if the chant isn't done exactly right, the river won't flood this year. And that means no crops, which means no food. Which means the city starves and the gods get mad again. You're not even sure you believe in the gods anymore. But belief, optional. Ritual, mandatory. Someone forgot the incense last time. A week later, the wheat sprouted yellow. Guess who they blamed? Once time was just sunrise and sunset. Now you've got schedules. Seasons, not shifts. You used to nap when you were tired. Now you wake up because the bells say it's time to grind grain. Congrats, you've invented time. And now you're stuck in it. There's even a calendar. It's wrong half the time, but it's official. Some guy counted moons until the goats started mating again and called it a month. The year, nobody agrees. But the taxes are due at the same time every harvest. Amazing how that's never late. It starts before you can walk. Born with certain parts, you'll farm. Fight lead. Or die trying. Born with others, you'll cook. Bared obey. Or die trying. There's no room for nuance, no exceptions. But most live inside the expectations carved for them, like names in wet clay. And if you ask why it's like this, the answer is always the same. Because it's always been this way, which usually means because someone said so 500 years ago and no one wanted to argue. You know that eerie silence before thunder? That's what it feels like the day before the raid. Because yes, you're a city now, but so are they, and they want your grain, your metal, your people. The warriors sharpen bone-tipped spears and mutter prayers no one actually believes. If you survive the night, you'll rebuild. Again, if you don't, well, then you become part of someone else's story. Trophy, slave, or warning. Welcome to civilization. You love your kid, even if they were born during a storm and people said it was a bad sign. Even if they cry all night and attract wolves. You love them, but loving a child here, it's not enough, because this isn't a world of padded corners and pediatricians. They could choke on a berry, get taken by a fever, fall in a hole and vanish forever. Half of all children won't see their 10th year. So you don't get attached too early. You can't, but you still do. Every time, because hope. That came before the first cities too. Before writing, before money. Before laws or kings or buildings, there was rhythm. You beat the drum, you stomp. You sing vowels that don't mean anything, but feel like everything. And for a while, you're not just a brickmaker or a butcher or a slave. You are alive. No one's recording it. There's no stage, no TikTok. Just you and the beat and the ache in your chest that says you exist. When someone dies here, you don't say they've passed. You say the gods took them, or the river did, or that they walk now in the field of reeds if you're from the south. You burn what they loved. You carve their name into soft clay if you can afford the tablet. Sometimes you whisper to their bones, hoping they hear you. Sometimes you just scream into the wind and hope it counts. Death isn't sanitized, it's not hidden. It's right there in your home, in your hands. And somehow, despite it, you keep going. Because mourning is as human as fire. You want to be remembered? Tell a good story. Not the dry ones the priests chant in temples. The real ones, about monsters in the dark, lovers turned to birds, tricksters who steal fire from the gods. You tell them around the fire, you change the details. You exaggerate, lie, sing, laugh, and somehow the truth still gets through. Long before books, before epics, before history. There were tales told in the dust, under the stars, beside the bones of your grandmother. And if you're lucky, someone will whisper yours someday too. One day your city will fall. Not because it was weak, but because everything ends. The river will shift, the trade routes will change. The walls will crumble and vines will eat what you built. Rats will live where kings once ruled. But the people, they won't vanish. They'll carry the stories, the skills, the scars, and build again, somewhere new. Because a city isn't stone. It's memory, and memory doesn't die. You've got too many fish. They've got fancy shells. Nobody speaks the same language, but hunger makes everyone bilingual eventually. So you hold out your prize, they hold out theirs. And for a heartbeat, you both wonder, are they gonna stab me instead? They don't. Instead, they take the fish and hand over the shells. You both nod awkwardly. You've just invented international trade. Congratulations. No paperwork. No taxes, just trust and a little fear. You're foraging, minding your own business when you reach for the pretty red berries. And suddenly, bam, Grandma Lungscratch grabs your wrist like a hawk. No, she says, or grunts, or beats her chest in the universal language of disapproval. You don't ask why. You just nod, apologize to the bush, and back away slowly. Later you learn, those berries made someone see sounds and then try to fight a tree. From that moment on, that plant is taboo, and your survival, it just leveled up thanks to Grandma's trauma. Life is harsh, yeah, but it's not joyless. You laugh, loud, ugly, chest-deep laughs when your friend faceplants into the river chasing a squirrel. You sing out of tune. You make up stories about the moon. You fart near the fire and pretend it was the dog. There is no dog. Everyone knows it was you. You find joy in the tiny things. A fresh fig, a warm breeze. A friend who shares the last bite of roasted boar. Even in the world before cities, life finds a way to be beautiful. You ever feel alone, even when surrounded by people? Yeah, so did they. Maybe your partner died. Maybe the tribe moved and you didn't quite fit anymore. Maybe you just had a rough day and needed air that didn't smell like goats and sweat. You wander to the edge of camp. Sit under a tree, watch the stars. Maybe hum an old tune your mother used to sing. No Spotify, no therapy apps. Just you, the wind, and a few confused frogs wondering what you're doing. Loneliness didn't arrive with Instagram. It's been sitting beside the fire for tens of thousands of years. You wake up at dawn, heart pounding. You dreamt of fire swallowing the trees, of birds flying backward, of your brother turning into a snake. It's nonsense, right? Except not here. Here dreams are messages from spirits, from ancestors, maybe even from future you. You tell the elders. They nod gravely. They draw symbols in the dust. Someone sacrifices a beetle. You're not sure what's going on, but everyone's taking it very seriously. And from now on, people treat you like the one who hears the whispers between worlds. You didn't ask for it, but dreams, in this world, they have power. Your kid asks, why does the sun go away? You could say, I don't know. But instead, your brain gets creative. Well, little one, the sun gets tired and dives into the ocean to rest in the arms of the moon. The kid gasps, eyes wide. Suddenly it spreads. Now everyone says it. Now there's a ritual at sunset to thank the sun for working hard. Congratulations. You accidentally invented a creation myth. And in 5,000 years, someone will carve your nonsense into stone like it's scripture. You meant it as a bedtime story. Now it's religion. Oops. You don't have a house, but you do have the fire. It's the hearth, the gossip station, the daycare, the therapy couch. It's the one constant in a world where everything else is chaos and claw marks. Fire is warmth, fire is safety. Fire is memory. Your grandpa told stories here. So did your mother. Now you do. It crackles. It glows. It listens. It's not alive, but it might as well be. Because when you lose someone, you still talk to them here. Just you and the fire. You won't be remembered by name. There's no written language yet. No monument. No birth certificate. But maybe someone finds the necklace you carved from shell and tooth. Or the cave painting of your family dancing under stars. Or your bones curled next to a fire pit with pollen in your teeth. They won't know your favorite food, or how you sang off key, or that you once tried to ride a pig like a horse. But they'll know you lived, you felt, you created. And for a species not yet building cities, that's enough. The sun dips low, the shadows stretch long, and suddenly everyone starts to gather. faces smeared with clay, eyes wild, hearts racing. Tonight isn't just a meal, it's a ritual. You don't fully understand it yet. No one really explains ritual. It's in the breath, the drumbeat, the sweat, the trembling hands holding eagle feathers and fire-smoked herbs. A chant rises low and guttural. Someone dances like they're possessed. Maybe they are. You're not sure if this is religion, magic, or therapy with extra screaming. But it feels ancient, bigger than you, like plugging your soul into a socket made of smoke and ancestors. You walk away dazed, changed. The stars look different now, you're sick. Your chest rattles like a mammoth with asthma, and your eyes are leaking weird. Time to visit the healer. Now don't picture a white coat and stethoscope. Picture a woman with 40 necklaces made of teeth and a look that says, "I've seen some stuff." She gives you a paste made of moss, chewed root, and fermented squirrel urine. Tastes like disappointment. But you take it, because somehow, she knew that bark boiled for 6 hours would lower your fever. Trial and error, intuition, and the knowledge passed from generation to generation in grunts, smells, and stains on rock walls. You don't know how it works. You just hope it does. You didn't think there'd be romance, did you? Oh, there is. You catch their eye across a river. They bring you honey. You offer them a feather. And boom, prehistoric flirting. There's no wedding, no matching outfits. Just the quiet decision, we survive better together. Sometimes it lasts a lifetime. Sometimes just until the next migration. But the emotions, the butterflies, the ache when they're gone, those are timeless. Even when your language doesn't have a word for love, your heart still knows exactly what it means. You hit a wall, maybe you lost someone, maybe the hunt failed. Maybe it's just everything, you sit alone. You cry, scream, stay silent, whatever you've got left. And here's the thing, you're not weak. Because in a world where survival is a full-time job, letting yourself feel is a rebellion, a moment of humanity. Later, someone leaves a berry at your feet. Another sits beside you in silence. They don't say much, but they're there. In this world, grief isn't a flaw. It's a shared weight, and it's carried together. Let's clear something up. Life before cities? Not some 1950s sitcom where the women cooked and the men threw spears and nobody ever cried. Sure, there were roles. You do what you're good at. But it wasn't rigid. Women hunted, men gathered. Elders taught. Kids helped, or at least tried not to get eaten. Gender wasn't a box. It was a toolkit. You knew who was strong, who was clever, who was good with herbs, who could throw a rock and hit a bird in midair. That's what mattered, efficiency over ego. So maybe we lost something along the way. Your hands tell your story, calloused, scarred, burned. Steady, you've used them to build shelter, hold newborns, dig roots, bury the dead, start fires, cradle faces. Every line in your palm is a memory etched in flesh. There's no resume, no Instagram. Your worth is written in what you've done, and it's visible always. If someone looks at your hands, they know. You've lived. The food runs low. The rivers shift. The animals move on. So you move too. There's no goodbye party, just the slow, practiced act of letting go. You pack the essentials, a favorite tool, a carved bone, a handful of soil from the hearth. One last look back, you know the rain will wash away your footprints. The wind will erase your shelter. But some part of you hopes the next wanderer feels that echo, like someone lived here, like it mattered. And then you walk on. There are no walls yet, no kings, no taxes, no clocks, no borders. Just you, the sky, the people beside you, and the knowledge that nothing is permanent except maybe the stars. Before the first city, life was raw, ugly, beautiful, messy, sacred, and above all, real. Hey, you made it. You survived thousands of years in the mud and blood of prehistory. And now you're here, watching this, in a world lit by electricity and powered by chips the size of crumbs. But somewhere in you, that ancient fire still burns. So tonight, when you sit by a flame or stare at the moon, or eat something that makes you close your eyes in joy, take a moment, think of them. So here's the kicker. Once people started storing food, someone had to guard it, which quickly turned into someone owning it, which then mutated into someone telling everyone else what to do. You invented bosses, not the cool, empowering kind with vision boards. Nope, the shouty, that's my barley kind. He's not smarter. He just got to the surplus first, and maybe hit harder. Now his kids are important by blood, and yours are workers. It's not personal. It's just the dawn of hierarchy. Somewhere out there, someone's inventing nepotism, and they don't even know it. You ever lie awake thinking about the future? Yeah, they did too. Except your future is maybe I'll switch jobs. Theirs is, what if the gods are angry and kill my goats? Same anxiety. Less Wi-Fi. You're stressed because your email has 147 unread messages. They're stressed because the stars moved weirdly last night, and now they think the world might end. You pace around your kitchen. They pace around a fire pit, muttering old words they don't quite believe in anymore. Welcome to the human condition. We worry. A lot. Modern medicine, still thousands of years away. So when someone's sick, you don't call a doctor. You call old Stone Eye, the village mystic with a pet owl and 0 science degrees. She burns something that smells like armpit and sadness. She chants, waves feathers, maybe spits into a bowl of roots and beetle husks. You're not sure it's working, but no one argues with her. Because one time someone did, and he immediately fell in a hole and broke his leg. Coincidence? Maybe. But in 8000 BCE, coincidence equals divine punishment. You've got a nice flint scraper. Handmade, reliable. Then your neighbor shows up with obsidian, shiny. Blackguard razor, sharp. Imported from 200 kilometers away. Suddenly everyone's like, wow, Tarka's really doing well lately. You don't want to care. But deep down you do. You try to pretend you're above it. But then you catch yourself thinking, maybe I should upgrade. My flint looks kind of basic now. Tool envy. The original consumerism. Earthquake? You don't know what tectonic plates are. You just know the ground shook, and that's never good. Someone says it's the gods punishing the village for letting women sing during planting. Someone else says it's the spirit of old Grandpa Elkleg trying to come back. You don't know who's right, but everyone agrees something pissed off something. You throw extra offerings into the fire just in case. Because even if it isn't supernatural, can you really afford to take that chance? One day, without warning, you become the elder. Your joints ache. Your friends are mostly gone. People bring you food without asking, which is nice, but also terrifying. The younger ones call you wise. But you know the truth. You're just the one who didn't die yet. Still, you tell stories, you give advice. Some of it's nonsense, but it's wrapped in enough confidence to sound ancient. And that's what being an elder really is. Survive long enough to make it sound like you planned it. You just spent 4 hours painting a bison on the wall using crushed berries and spit. It's beautiful, you're proud. And then Rokar comes in, looks at it and goes, legs too short. You try not to throw a rock at his head. Because apparently, even in the Stone Age, people have opinions about art they didn't make. Eventually you die, it's not dramatic. Not legendary. You don't go out fighting a saber-tooth or discovering Fire 2.0. Maybe you fall ill or just fade. They bury you in a mound of stones. They sing something ancient, and then they remember you. Your name, your laugh, the way you snored like a bear in heat. And sometimes, when the wind howls, they say, that's them. Still watching. You're a ghost now. But that's not the end. It's the beginning of being a story. You've lived through it now, the grind, the grit, the gods, the gossip, the grief, 10,000 years ago before cities, before comfort, before everything you take for granted today. They had no AC, no phones, no peanut butter, just hope, dirt and fire. But they made something from it, they made us. So next time you scroll past history like it's just old stuff, remember, they were us, and we are them, just with better dental. So, what do you think? Could you survive the world before cities? Would you make it past your first winter? Or would you get cancelled by a mammoth? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you made it all the way here, first, you're a legend. Second, hit that like button, subscribe and share this with a friend who always insists they'd thrive in the wild. Let's see if they'd last 10 minutes without DoorDash. Some days it just gets heavy. Not just your spear or your soaked through shoes, but that ache inside you. That pressure. That why am I here? And guess what? Even 12,000 years ago, people felt it. You've just buried your cousin. You haven't seen a deer in 6 days. The old woman in the tribe keeps muttering about the stars falling. You sit alone and stare at the fire, and for once, even that warm glow doesn't help. There's no therapist, no journal, no self-care Saturday, but maybe the elder notices, sits beside you, hands you a carved stone, smooth from the river, no words, just presence. Grief isn't new, anxiety isn't modern. You feel, you cope, you endure, and that's human. So, who does what? Short answer, everyone does everything they can. Sure, maybe some roles are shaped by biology, like who breastfeeds or who can run fastest after a boar. But that's not a rule, it's a rhythm. You, a woman, might be the best trap builder in the entire region. You, a man, might be the tribe's best storyteller or the healer who knows every plant by smell. There are no resumes, no HR department. You prove your value through skill, not gender. And if someone's bad at their job, the forest doesn't care what parts they were born with, it just eats them. Equality wasn't perfect, but necessity was a pretty strong motivator. You've got food, you've got fire, you've got free time, not much, but enough to create, and you do. You crush minerals to make ochre. You etch spirals into a mammoth tusk. You tie feathers onto your hair just because they look cool. This isn't just art, it's identity. You're not a cog in an economy. You're not optimizing for engagement metrics. You're just expressing. Imagine that. Nobody's watching, nobody's monetizing. But you still make, because the urge to create came long before the urge to profit. Let's say you twist your ankle on a rock, or a wild dog bites your thigh. Congrats, it's time for prehistoric medicine. You chew a bitter root and spit it into the wound. You bind it with fibers soaked in moss. If you're lucky, the tribe healer knows a trick from the old ones. Maybe charcoal ash for infection, or a mushroom that numbs the pain. If you're not lucky, well, you hope your body is in a generous mood. You might survive, you might not. But even here, in this brutal world, people try to heal each other. Because every saved life is another fire to sit around. Another story to tell, another heartbeat that says, we're still here. When the sun sets, the rules change. Sight is useless. Sound becomes your god. A twig snapping could be the wind, or a predator. Or something worse, the kind of thing old stories whisper about but never name. You stay close to the fire. You don't sleep too deeply. Every crackle in the brush sends shivers through your spine. There's no porch light, no deadbolt, no weather app, just you, the fire, and your imagination. You realize the night doesn't fear you. You fear it, and for good reason. Eventually someone looks up and asks why. Why does the moon change? Why do we die? Why do mammoths cry when they're dying? And just like that, philosophy is born. You don't have answers. You don't even have questions in full sentences. But you feel the need to understand, to name the unnamed. And from that yearning comes myth. A bear who stole fire, a serpent who eats the sun, a spirit who turns into rain. You tell these stories around the fire. They're not false, they're not true. They're tools to map a world that makes no promises. And maybe, just maybe, to find your place inside it. You won't leave behind a book, a will, a TikTok. But you leave something, a groove in the trail. A bead someone finds generations later. A whispered name passed down 4 or 5 storytellers deep. And if you're lucky, a handprint on the cave wall. Yours pressed there with red pigment and breath, saying, I was here, I lived. I mattered. No one may know who you were, but the echo of your existence will outlast you. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. You were never primitive, you were alive. Fiercely, fully, and with more grace than you get credit for. You endured things no modern algorithm can simulate. You built relationships without text messages. You made art, you mourned loss, you watched stars move and wondered what they meant. And now, you're still here. Different body, different time. Same curiosity. You are the child of survivors, of inventors, of wanderers who faced a world with no guarantees and kept going anyway. So the next time you feel small, overwhelmed, disconnected, look in the mirror. You're not just you. You're every ancestor's wildest dream. If this journey moved you, taught you something, or just made you grateful for central heating, hit that like button. All right, MacGyver, you think duct tape is impressive? Let me show you the prehistoric version of a multi-tool. You've got a stone, a stick, and some sinew from a deer you didn't even mean to kill. And somehow, you've made a fishing spear, a digging stick, and a spatula. Need to carry fire without burning your eyebrows off? You wrap coals in moss, boom, portable heat. Got blisters from walking all day barefoot? Tough luck, but also try chewed bark paste. It burns, but it works. Don't get me started on the backpack. A net woven from reeds, slung with leather straps. You just invented REI. And if you think smart homes are modern, your shelter literally breathes with the wind, stays cool in summer, warm in winter, and scares off hyenas just by stinking like smoked meat and ash. Who's primitive now? Okay, now for the awkward part. What happens when someone in the tribe screws up? No cops, no judges, no escape. Let's say one guy stole from the food stash. Or worse, lied about it. You feel the heat rise in the group, not just anger, fear, because one broken bond can ripple through the whole tribe like a cracked bone. You all sit together, and yes, it's uncomfortable. The old woman speaks first, then the hunter, then finally the accused. No shouting, no gavel, just silence and stories. Sometimes the guilty are exiled. Sometimes they have to make amends, give up their best kill. Sometimes they're forgiven, because justice here isn't about punishment. It's about balance. If the tribe fractures, everyone dies. You sit by the fire and someone begins to chant. Not words exactly, Pin, but rhythm, breath. A memory passed through lungs and teeth. Someone drops a carved figure into the flames. Not to destroy it, to send it somewhere. You're not sure where. See, belief didn't start with temples. It started with wonder. Why did your child live while your neighbors didn't? Why did the storm stop right before your hunt? Coincidence? Maybe, but maybe something watched over you. Maybe the trees have eyes, maybe the wind listens. Maybe when you die, you don't disappear. You just change. You don't believe in gods yet, but you believe in meaning. And honestly, that's the beginning of everything. All right, let's not romanticize it. The night is terrifying. Once that sun drops, your world shrinks to whatever your fire can touch. Outside of that, shadows, sounds, shapes that might be nothing or not. Your eyes strain, your ears sharpen. Every crack of a twig becomes a potential death sentence. You huddle close with others, pretending not to be afraid. You tell stories, not just to pass the time, but to keep the fear out. Some nights a scream cuts through the woods. You freeze, no one speaks. If you're lucky, it's just an animal fight. If not, well, maybe that empty bedroll in the morning won't be empty for long. That's why fire wasn't just warmth. It was a border between worlds, between known and unknown, life and death. And you guarded it like your soul. When you sleep, the world doesn't stop. It just gets weirder. Dreams were never just dreams. They were messages, warnings, maybe visits. You dream of a bear. The next day you find bear tracks. You dream of your dead father. That night it rains and no one drowns. Coincidence? Maybe. But you're starting to wonder if sleep is when the spirit sneaks off to go do recon. Over time, some people dream more vividly than others. They become your guides, your seers, your proto-shamans. And when they speak, you listen. Because when the waking world is this unpredictable, sometimes your only map is drawn behind your eyelids. The world is shifting, the ice retreats, the rivers flood with new life. The animals change, and so do you. You start to stay longer in one place. You clear a little more ground. You plant more seeds, you still hunt. You still move, but not as far. Not as often. This isn't the end of the old world. It's the beginning of something dangerous. Comfort. You trade freedom for safety, movement for memory. And while you don't know it yet, this quiet little cluster of huts, someday it'll be called Jericho, and it will outlive you by thousands of years. And now here we are. 10,000 years later you sit, maybe in a soft chair, holding a glowing rectangle, listening to my voice. Your house is warm, your belly is full. You haven't chased your dinner in weeks. But you're still human. You still seek meaning, still fear the dark, still long for connection. The tools have changed, but you're not so different from the ones who came before. So next time you feel lost, maybe light a candle. Sit still, listen for echoes. And remember, you were never just born into this world. You came from fire, If this journey moved you, hit that like button. It's the modern version of throwing a carved stone in the fire. Let's talk about your side hustle, cave art. No, it wasn't just ancient graffiti or boredom doodles. This was spiritual, political, maybe even social media. You dip your fingers in ochre, spit mixed with ash, animal fat. You press your hand to the wall and boom, that's your tag next to it. Mammoths in motion, antelope mid-leap, a bear with 6 legs. Okay, maybe you hadn't nailed realism, but you felt it. Sometimes the art's deep underground, like crawl for an hour through pitch darkness deep. Why go there? Because the cave wasn't just a canvas. It was a temple, a dream. Somewhere between life and whatever waits after it, and you left your soul on stone, hoping the world or someone would remember. Guess what? We did. Let's kill a tired myth. Women in prehistory, they weren't just gathering berries and looking decorative. They were leading migrations, taming fire, sculpting gods out of clay and bark, and yes, hunting. Evidence shows some female skeletons were buried with throwing spears, bows, even game trophies. They nursed the sick, made tools, memorized the stars, and mapped the terrain better than Google Earth. Your auntie? She's the one who found the cave with warm springs and no wolves. She's the reason your tribe survived last winter. So the next time someone says men built civilization, remind them women made sure there was something left to build with. Imagine this. You're walking through a forest clearing and you see them. Not wolves, not deer. People, but not your people. They wear different furs. They smell weird. Their hair's braided funny. They speak in bird calls and tree grunts. You freeze. Your tribe has stories about this. How others steal children or bring disease or worse, take your fire. But maybe they carry a woven basket of dried fish. Maybe one of them laughs nervously, and it sounds just like your cousin. You lower your spear slowly, carefully, and just like that, for the first time, humans met humans as strangers. This was the beginning of diplomacy, of curiosity, and probably of really awkward small talk. Okay, now that we're not stabbing each other, let's barter. You want red ochre from the river coast? Well, I've got extra elk sinew, bone needles, and a really cute fur pouch I swear I didn't steal. The first trade deals weren't about gold or land. They were about survival and style. Beads made from snail shells in the mountains. That means someone traded with someone who traded with someone who lived 100 miles away. So yeah, prehistory had its influences too, except instead of posting about skincare routines, they shared how to preserve meat without dying of salmonella. Win-win. You wake up with a fever. Your gut is doing gymnastics. You might be dying. What do you do? No hospitals, no antibiotics. Just dirt, herbs, and a very stern old woman who talks to plants. She brews you something made from moss, mushroom, and possibly eagle droppings. It smells like burnt hope. You drink it anyway. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you poop out your soul. But here's the wild part. A lot of early medicine did work. Willow bark for pain, that's basically aspirin. Moldy bread on wounds, hello, penicillin prototype. Spider webs for bandages. Antibacterial, surprisingly effective. They didn't know the why. But they watched, they remembered, and every healed infection became a miracle worth telling. Eventually someone dies, not from war, not even hunger, just time or infection. Or that tree that finally fell the wrong way. You gather round, you bury them with care. A shell necklace, a flint blade, a carved bone. You want them to have something wherever they're going. No one speaks much, but you all remember how he always found honey. How she made fire with one try. How they told stories so vivid it felt like dreaming. Memory becomes your religion, your way to keep them alive. Because if they're remembered, maybe they're not really gone. Maybe they just walked ahead, okay, zoom out. Before cities, before kings, before history had historians, you already had everything that made you human. Imagination, fear-love, story, and the relentless, weird, beautiful drive to make things better. You were messy, brilliant, funny, tragic. You weren't primitive. You were us. So hey, if you've made it this far, you're officially an honorary member of the Fire Circle. No loincloth required.